Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and welcome back to the TvZ ProCast edition, where I am going to be bringing you an exciting matchup between two titans of their respective races. We do have SlayersMMA spawning as the Teal Terran player on the bottom right side of ESL Entombed Valley, and on the top left, we have LiquidZenio as a Red Zerg player. And both these players are absolutely incredible for their respective races. Zenio has really emerged in 2012 as a dominant Zerg player, and towards the end of 2011 he was beginning to get that up and coming status, and now I really feel like he's been making a great showing everywhere he's gone. MMA, enough said with the name. Very powerful Terran player, probably the best in the world, some would argue. Has surpassed MVP multiple times in many tournaments. So it should be a very exciting matchup. I would give a very slight advantage over to MMA just because we've seen very consistent results from him from a very extended period of time. But other than that, I mean, Zenio has been producing results of his own recently. So, I mean, it's hard to say one way or the other which player will prevail. I believe that this is from the IEM, as these are all played on the ESL and are from about the same time period. I did pick up the Puma vs. MC finals of IEM, it turned out. I guessed that entire series just kind of guessing it was IEM, and then afterward I did a little research, and it turned out that not only was it IEM, MC vs. Puma was the finals. Everybody makes mistakes, right? So this is going to be from the IEM. Looks like MMA is setting up to do a little bit of bunker pressure. Probably not going to follow up with that, as his first Marine is only now beginning to walk across the map, just forcing the pulling of drones. Going to lose this. Oh, not going to lose that SCV. Nice pull by MMA, getting that away with 5 health left. And this bunker is just once again going to serve as a bit of a distraction. And the drones will go ahead and get back to business. TvZ. Really fun classic matchup. It's kind of I'd say it's like the most classic matchup of Starcraft, and I don't know why, but it just seems like every time a TvZ comes on, everybody's excited. Even all the Protoss fans in the crowd, you know, just tune in. And it's just so refined of a matchup. There's so many little variables in that mid game. The early game, maybe a little bit stale, but once you get to that mid game and late game, just so many different things going on. There has been that recent ghost nerf, unfortunately, which kind of made those ghosts bad. It made the ghosts a much less viable option in the late game. And while I believe most players would agree that ghosts did need to be nerfed in that late game, I feel like the patch may have been a bit excessive, and also may have also I don't know, just kind of made them completely unviable in every way, shape, and form in the late game, only being able to do 25 damage. They're not even worth sniping Zerglings or Zealots. Not Zerglings, Banelings. Yes, let's snipe all of the Zerglings. They're not even worth it to try to snipe Banelings, as it does take 2 snipes to even kill a Baneling now. And I do hope Blizzard revisits that patch and maybe makes another little change with that. But I won't hold my breath on that. Pretty standard opening out of both players. Zenio, of course, did that nice little fast expand around 15. Gonna go ahead and get a spine crawler down at the front. And I believe even has a 3rd queen on the field right now, a 4th one on the way, just to be spreading creep. I really always have liked that heavy creep play out of Zerg, as it gives great map awareness and really allows the Zerg to get a freedom of movement in that early game. Does look like a couple of these creep tumors might get sniped though by these Marines that are pushing up right now. 1 creep tumor does go down, but with the spine crawler in place, I really feel Zenio is going to be just fine from this harassment. Stim only just now starting, so this can't even be a little bit of a mini stim push. And now there are 4 queens down here, beating down these rocks. A couple of the queens abandoning their hatchery posts just to try to get these rocks taken out faster, so that Zenio can take a nice 5th base, 3rd base fairly quickly. And getting a fast 3rd base as a Zerg player, always a nice option if it is available. Unfortunately, these rocks take so long to go down. The queens only doing 4 damage a hit, minus the 3 armor. So these rocks take quite a while to go down. It's going to be very annoying for him to get that. In the meantime, a lot of Marines pushing out across the map. Reactors going down on barracks. So it looks like we're seeing very, very heavy Marine plays so far in this game. Just now getting the factory at almost the 8-minute point is when that is finishing up. I'm going to go ahead and get the starport right next to that. Scan goes down to try to stop this creep spread a little bit. This is really what you need to do as a Terran player when the Zerg is trying to very, very aggressively extend their creep around. You cannot just let them take half the map with their creep. You really need to keep forcing that back as much as possible, because if you allow the Zerg player to get full map presence like that, it can be really difficult to do just little timing pushes. It can be difficult to even try to do any sort of surprise, as you can't really circumvent that creep all that well, and overlords cover the air areas, I suppose you could say. Looks like SlayersMMA beginning to look like he might want to take a third base as well. Gonna go ahead and be taking down his back rocks. The back rocks for Zenio have fallen, so that Zenio can go ahead and take that third base, easily be able to hold that. Lair about to come on the way. Pretty normal timing on that, and I love the macro hatch going down in the main base as well. A lot of players don't actually do this macro hatch. They'll just kind of take a third base, maybe even take an aggressive fourth base, and use those to macro off of. Maybe not fully saturate those bases right away. But I really feel like that macro hatch can really ramp up your abilities on 2-base. You don't necessarily have the dronage amount at this point in the game to go ahead and take a fourth base and be able to, you know, fully saturate it. So I like the decision to go ahead and go for that macro hatchery. It does look like this scouting overseer actually did completely miss these two medevacs, so this drop might actually get all the way across the map unnoticed. And I just want to point out the fact that we have Marines. There's one Marine here guarding this overlord, making sure it doesn't get around. A Marine up here guarding this little passageway to make sure a little skirt around can't happen from the Zerg player. And I just want to point that out because I think that's great map coverage by MMA. Zenio is going to have a hard time finding him in this game, and even dropping one Marine off at this fourth base. Drop is coming up into this third base area, and I think that may have been scouted right, just right then by that Queen. Marines are dropping off. Stim has finished up. These Zerglings are going to have a tough time taking out Stim Marines with 2 full medevacs of Marines. Banelings are on the field, however, and might be able to do quite a bit of damage to these Marines. And oh no, they get picked up at the very last moment here. Make sure I don't get a message during this game. Manages to pick up those Marines at the last moment. Does lose about 1 full medevac worth of Marines, but was able to do a little bit of harassment there. Just take out some Zerglings. I don't know if he actually got any drones, but it's just the presence of the drops that can really throw off the metagame of your opponent. And now trying to get back into the medevac, has to run straight into those speedlings, but does get away. Pathogen glands and infestors are on the field. Those infestors going to be finishing up just after that pathogen glands does. Spore Crawl is coming down as well to defend against the drops, and now the the fourth base is going to be coming up from LiquidZenio, as he's just now getting that droning power. That 64 drones, needs about 10 more drones and he'll be perfect. MMA taking his third base as it is, and it looks like he's just keeping up this constant pressure with his Marines, and now tanks supplementing the force as well. Siege mode is completed. MMA just kind of being relentless with this, and I love the aggression out of it. This is something you'll see a lot out of MKP, is just heavy Marine pushes. Not always getting the tanks in MKP's case, but just keep on forcing it, and eventually you will break through the lines a lot of the time. But Zenio, a very patient player, just sitting back, waiting for MMA to position himself, waiting for the opportunity. And eventually, once he finds that opening, he will just force it. You can see he's not always engaging these forces. Not even going to engage here where he might have been able to pick off a couple of tanks. Just going to run up, see what's there, and fall on back. Lot of Zerglings out onto the field for Zenio right now. 1-1 upgrades on his Zerglings. 0-1 for the Marines, and 0-0 for the tanks as well. And now heading up for that Spire, which is just gonna give us kind of that classic Zergling, Baneling, Mutilus composition with a few Infestors mixed in, because now that we have this extra base, we can start getting the gas required for that. And again, you can see Zenio established this base, but as soon as it gets threatened by MMA, Zenio just kind of falls back a little bit, waits for his opponent to get in position. And you can see right here, he's not really seeing a perfect engagement angle, so he's not going to push it. He tries to run up there, loses a couple of units to the siege tank fire, and then falls back. just falls back, and it looks like he might actually be sacking this base even, because his army is completely out of the way now, and I don't even see... Oh, there is a drop going on over in the main base, which is what he is going to be going over and cleaning up right now. That does take precedence. There's another drop over at the top of the base as well. Great multitasking by Zenio to get a few units to each of those. He needs to make sure to clean both of them up, though, and not lose too much too fast. Might lose the spawning pool, which would be just devastating for Zenio. But no, it does look like his Zerglings are going to get there just in time to defend against that. In the meantime, this fourth base has fallen for Zenio, reestablishing one on the bottom side. And this is something you will see time and time again out of Zenio. Oh gosh, that spawning pool is so close to going down. And oh my goodness, every last Marine does get cleaned up with only 43 health left on that pool. But I was watching a daily recently where Day 9 was examining Zenio's playstyle, and you'll see this time and time again. He'll lose a base up here, and he'll expand down here. Now you see MMA is going to spot this base. Zenio more likely than not going to lose this base. He's just re-expanding to where he was before. Minerals, generally not a big problem as a Zerg player. Gas is normally the limiting factor, and you can see right here, Zenio actually even getting Corruptors to deal with those Medivacs, which is a very, very interesting way to deal against Medivacs. Generally, you will see Mutalisks against Medivacs, as they can really counter that speed. Corruptors, I think, just as good, though. They do a lot more damage than those Mutalisks, obviously, and can take a bit more punishment, too, before going down. Unfortunately, they do have limited use in the mid-game, but once we get to the late game, pardon me, the Corruptors used for the Medivacs might be able to be morphed into Broodlords. Beautiful fungal growth going down on MMA's entire army. Kills off a good third of it, and the rest of it down on red. However, Zenio did have to sack all his Zerglings, but you will sack Zerglings any day to do this kind of damage to Marines and tanks. And now we can see Zenio has made MMA's army extraordinarily fragile, and once again, might lose this base. Indeed, does cancel it, expands down here. He's just expanding all over the place, not afraid to lose a few units and a couple bases to do so, and just keeping up this constant pressure. This constant pressure. MMA is just doing a great job with this, but Zenio doesn't look to be crumpling all that much. His supply is falling quite a bit, but with a couple of decisive battles, he's doing a fairly good job of staying in this game. Kills a few Medivacs, kills a nice handful of Marines there, and really the biggest supply count right now is these tanks. And look at these, all half health or lower. Marines not doing all that much better themselves. We even have an Ultralisk Cavern coming onto the field right now to complement the melee attack upgrade, as well as the carapace, which Ultralisk, I believe, can get up to 5 carapace with that chitinous plating. But MMA trying desperately to break the back of Zenio, and once again, while we see the supply is quite a bit ahead for MMA, Zenio has not broken, might lose this base as well, pulls all of his drones, doesn't let the hatchery finish. Don't know if he will be able to save that, however, as there are a lot of tanks. This is a beautiful tank line by MMA, and it's going to be very difficult to be able to break that. And indeed, Zenio falls back, lets it die, and look, he's already retaking yet another base up here. However, Zenio having so many problems getting up to a fourth base, MMA on a rival third base. I feel like Zenio, while he's been doing a great job of just, dying, expanding, trading armies, I feel like he is beginning to reach the end of his line. 89 drones. Needs to really cut back on a few of those. Trying to engage his army down here. Too many stimmed up Marines to go ahead and fight against that. Scans are going down everywhere just to make sure that MMA does know the positioning of the armies. We actually do have a Ghost Academy on the field. Don't know if any ghosts are on the field. No, they are not. Just to be able to probably EMP all of those infestors. And now we're actually having the tanks being picked up inside the Medivacs to get those up on top of the army. But those Corruptors might be able to take a couple of the Medivacs out, but no. Well, the Medivacs will die, but most of the tanks do get out onto the field before the Medivacs die. And now it looks like the natural expansion is the base under siege. Fourth base is secured for the moment, but how long MMA's army has cut Zenio in half. His entire main and natural base probably going to go down. In the meantime, Zerglings and Infestors are caught away from the rest of the army. Broodlords are being morphed in, but might be a little bit too little too late. There is just not all that much left for Zenio fairly shortly here. MMA's reproduction capabilities are super high up on that, up on all those 3 bases. Just even look at the mineral count staying right on top of that. Could even use one more supply depot, or I guess a command center, to to go ahead and max out, but other than that, very, very close game. But once again, I really feel like this is going into MMA's favor, as these Broodlords are going to be great, but there's actually not all that many Marines left on the field. So these Broodlords actually might be able to do quite a bit of damage to this army. Banelings and Zerglings rolling into those siege tanks. However, Broodlords are what should be taking those out, as tanks obviously cannot be shooting up. And just like that, actually, MMA's tank forces are taken out. Haha. Terrible pun. But there already is an entirely remacroed force of MMA running across the field with a lot of Marines. 73 Harvesters to 44. Zenio lost almost 40 full Harvesters in that battle. Has lost 47 all game long. Not a single Harvester killed by Zenio himself. And now I feel like he's going to have problems taking out the last of these Marines, trying to get his infestation pit, trying to get his spawning pool back, so that he can just even remake any sort of capable army. But as it's looking right now, Zenio just doesn't have much of a leg to stand on. He has some nice Broodlords, has a couple of Infestors, but once these Infestors run out of energy, there is going to be nothing stopping these Marines and Vikings from getting on top of those Broodlords. Gets one Fungal Growth down, two Fungal Growth down. The second Fungal Growth was beautiful right on top of those Marines, but these Vikings are going to be uncontested in the air if he can go ahead and take out these Corruptors. And Zenio just GG's. He knows he cannot contest with that army of MMA. And I just want to go back home and just look at all this production capability. We have 6 barracks here. There's got to be even a couple more somewhere. No, actually just 6 barracks. We have starports with reactors churning out Vikings to take out the Corruptors and the Broodlords. A 4th base has been established, a planetary fortress at that. Was going to be very difficult to take down. MMA played a beautiful game here, just showing us that classic Marine tank strategy to go ahead and take the game away. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and I thank you for joining me here on the Coffee Cast. This is going to be a best of 3 series, so we do have at least one more game on the way. Zenio does need to win this next game to be able to go on to an ace match. Should be interesting to see if he is able to do that. And without further ado, this is Coffee Break, signing out.